Welcome to Chautauqua People. My name is John V. I was born in Buffalo, grew up about an hour's drive north of Mayville and Hamburg, currently summer at Chautauqua, and spend the rest of the year in Cary, North Carolina. Cary is an area of very high population growth, going from less than 50,000 in 1990 to nearly 165,000 this year. Only a small portion of the Cary population is composed of native-born North Carolinians. The standing joke is that Cary stands for Containment Area for Relocated Yankees. I recently experienced the failure of some dental work done in Buffalo during my high school years. After being seen by 3 specialty-trained dentists, I ended up in a practice headed by a doctor whose dialect would sound familiar to most here, but didn't sound like he began in North Carolina. Early on during a lengthy series of appointments, I explained that I wanted to get back into the television studio this summer, housed in the old Mayville High School building with a full set of teeth. No response from the doctor. Much as we warmed up someone socially during our young adult years by asking where they were upon learning about President Kennedy's assassination, the Cary warm-up question is, where are you from? So, after a procedure, I asked the Cary question to this doctor, and he said, a little town south of Buffalo. Oh yeah? Where? Now, that evening, after sobering up from his anesthesia, I reflected upon the procedure, and most significantly, his answer to my departure question. Was I really so doped up that I invented the answer, Mayville? Next appointment. Doc, did you really say that you were from Mayville? Yes. What brought your family to Mayville? My father was principal of Mayville High School. So here he is. Take a good look at him. Salvador DeAngelo, Sam DeAngelo, former principal of Mayville High School, the place where we are sitting in the studios of Access Chautauqua. So Sam, did you ever think you'd come back to this place on camera to go through such a procedure?
Never. It's been 23 years since I've been here. And in fact, driving up the street, I had all kinds of memories. And going by the school, I went, oh my goodness. Yeah, it was interesting.
Now, what years were you the principal here?
I'm sorry, what years?
What years?
1987 to 1995.
Okay, and tell me what you did to get to a principalship. That's not an easy path.
No, I was a teacher, of course, first. Taught foreign languages. And after that, I started taking administrative courses, got my master's, my CIS, etc., and became an administrator, first as a vice principal in a school that had roughly 200 kids in a class. Palmyra, Massillon, New York, which is outside of Rochester.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then after a while, I got a job down here as principal, and I was here for quite a while, and then moved on.
Okay. Now, where did you learn your languages?
That's a tough question. I was bilingual at a very young age. Grandma and Grandpa helped to raise me because we all lived in the same house together.
Mm-hmm.
Mom and Dad worked all day, so of course I learned English from Mom and Dad, but Grandma and Grandpa did not speak English, and I learned Italian, specifically Sicilian.
Mm-hmm.
And we went on from there, and I didn't know it wasn't normal to be bilingual. For me, it was okay.
Okay.
Then as the years went on, things happened. When I was 8 years old, my elementary principal came up to me and said, we're going to have 2 Puerto Rican students in our school, and I'd like you to help them learn English. And of course, here I am, 8 years old. I'm going. So I said, well, I don't speak Spanish. Said, no, but your Sicilian is very similar to Puerto Rican. Well, what do I know? I was 8 years old. So I said, okay. So we went back and forth, madre, mother, padre, father. Within a 6-month period, I was speaking fluent Puerto Rican, and I was going to their homes and working with their parents as well. Super situation. And I learned Spanish. Then when I got to high school, junior high, excuse me, I took French and German in high school. In college, I majored in French, became a French teacher. Being at Oswego, New York, and not too far from the Canadian border, it was common to major in French. Spanish was not a common major at that time, okay? And so I majored in French, became a French teacher. When I was teaching French the first year, not too long after I started, the Italian teacher had a physical problem, had to have surgery, so they moved me from French over to Italian for 6 weeks, I think it was, in 2 of the classes. So there I am teaching Italian as a first-year teacher. Just before the year ended, the German teacher from Germany was called back to Germany on an emergency, so they put me in one of his classes to finish out the year. So I had quite an interesting first year. But it sort of told me languages was where I belonged at that time. Not too far past that, 5 years, I got a phone call from the prison system. Auburn Correctional Facility is a maximum security prison. And the director there found out that I was bilingual. So he called me and he asked me if I would be interested in interviewing for a bilingual position. And I didn't know specifically what it was. So I went and interviewed, found out that he needed somebody to teach high school equivalency preparation in Spanish to the Hispanic inmates. What I didn't know at that time was New York State allows you to take the high school equivalency preparation in your language. Because most of these people did speak English, but there was no way they were going to be able to handle 5 different courses at the level that you'd have to in English. So I taught that, spoke Spanish 8 hours a day, and never had a student fail the exam. I was very proud of that.
Wow, and how many students?
24.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And never had one fail. I was lucky. I had students who really cared, because you see, they weren't that interested in getting the exam, other than when you go to the parole board or when you go to find out if you can get out of there, the more you've done, the better chance you have. Most sentences are double, 5 to 15, 10 to 20, whatever. Mm-hmm. The first one is a minimum. The second one is a maximum. If you have done something to show some kind of retribution, you can do it. So either you work in the factory, in the prison, they made other license plates in New York State, or you go to school. And because they got their high school equivalency preparation course and passed the course, that showed an interest, that showed something. And that helped in many cases.
Right, right. And so when you were working with those prisoners, did you have a talk about their past, or was it focus on the language?
Some did. Some did. Some of them had a better life in the prison than they ever had outside. At least they got 3 full meals, which in some cases that was not the case.
They said in the Army, 3 hots and a cot, and that was...
You know. But I taught there for 5 years, and while I taught there, I was doing coursework for my administrative degree.
Where'd you do that?
Oswego.
Went up to Oswego.
Yeah. And then I got my first master's at Oswego. The coursework for the CAS was at Brockport.
Okay, okay.
And I convinced a professor to come down to Auburn to do our coursework there. And the guy said, we'll do it if you recruit enough people. So I started working at it and recruited. I was up to 42 people, and they asked me to stop.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I knew that, you can say yes, but when it comes to paying the money and actually doing it, I'm going to lose some. Mm-hmm. And they wanted a minimum of 25 people. Okay? So it ended up we had 35 go through the whole program.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's magnificent leadership,
Yep.
isn't it? Now, tell me what happened after you finished your 5 years, your watch at Auburn. Then what did you do?
Oh, then we moved to Palmyra, Massillon, and I was an assistant principal for 5 years. In many ways, that was my favorite job ever. I worked because I got a chance to work specifically with the kids, and that was great. That was great.
And what is the assistant principal's duties?
Well, in my case, I was able to do a lot of the scheduling for teachers, evaluations. I helped the principal, okay, doing evaluations. But mostly I was able to do the discipline with students and try to work with the families.
Right.
I also did something called PSP at that time, which had to do with the Committee on Special Education. And I learned a lot, an awful lot. And then when I ended up becoming a principal, I came in with some kind of knowledge. The other thing I did was when I did my internship in Auburn, New York, rather than doing high school, because I felt I knew that, I did elementary on purpose, because I felt I knew very little about elementary. And sure enough, the first job I got was grade 5, 6, and then junior high and high school.
Right.
So that helped me by doing a elementary internship.
Right. Right. So that worked out. Now tell us about your arrival in this building.
When I arrived here, I'm trying to think what happened, why the position was open, and I was thinking about that and I can't remember. Somebody went on, I guess. I found this to be a very friendly faculty, worked very well with them. The whole idea that I professed is we're here to work with kids, to show them that there is a future. This world that we live in isn't necessarily wonderful all the time. And once you finish high school, now what? So I had 2 words that I used to use with students that I thought were very important. Direction and commitment. Direction. What do you want to do and how do you get there? Now I had one student come up to me, not knowing and otherwise, came up to me and said, I think I want to be a principal, just like you. I said, well, good. I said, then you can enroll in a program, get your teaching degree, teach for a while, and then become a... Oh, no, I don't want to teach. See, people do not necessarily know all the little games that you play on the way up. So it's important to be able to explain it. So with direction, I tell people, how do I get there? What do I do? Commitment. No matter what you say, no matter what you do, I'm going to do it. Yes, we're going to step 2 forward, 1 backward, maybe 2 backward, 1 forward. But I'm going to do it. And that's exactly what happened with my son. In 10th grade, he said, I want to be a dentist. I was shocked. Shocked. Where did you get that idea from? Well, he enjoyed working with and talking to his dentist, and he decided that was a good position for him.
Now, his dentist is somebody in town, is he not?
Yeah, and he never changed, okay? What he did was he started looking into all the things that you have to do to get it, and then he decided, I'm going to UNC Chapel Hill, because at that time it was considered #1 in clinical dentistry, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Sam, I said, no offense, but they only take 18% out of the state. Well, I'm #1 in my class. Why can't I be there? I said, well, you can, but let's look at other ways to get there. Again, direction.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it would be a good idea if you attempted ROTC, ROTC. He took the test, got it, and got into North Carolina because of ROTC.
So did he go through ROTC?
He went through 1 year, thought it was good, but he didn't love it, and he said, I'd rather not do it. I said, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And he was okay with that. Did very well at UNC, and then wanted to go on. So after the first 4 years, he got accepted for another 4 to do his dentistry. Graduated from his dental program, and then decided he wanted to be a periodontist. Went to Ohio State for 3 years. So
Right.
what I'm talking about with commitment,
Commitment, staying there.
you're going to do it, period.
Okay, so let's get back to the high school here.
Okay.
And you had how many grades in the school?
5 through 12.
5 through 12. So you
I had 5
You had
through
5 through 12. So you had the equivalent of what would be the end of the elementary school years,
Right.
junior high and senior high by current standards
Yes, sir.
now. How many were in a class at the school?
My son's class was as low as 36. There were none that hit 50.
Really?
Okay? So in that time period, people started talking about a word that some liked and some didn't, called merger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Let's merge this district with that district. Well, now you're getting into community activities, if you will. Some people thought it was a wonderful idea. So what happens is you vote both schools vote the same day. Mayville said yes. Chautauqua said no.
Goodness.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So now what happens is 1 year and 1 day after the first vote, you vote again. But what Mayville people didn't realize, you're done voting. You already passed it. Some people had a real problem with that because they had changed their mind and decided, well, maybe we don't want to merge.
Yeah.
They already did. They already passed it. One gentleman, and I don't know his name, from Chautauqua, worked very hard to get people to vote yes in Chautauqua. Trying to tell them that look at what you can get, what the state will pay for. Look at this beautiful school you're going to be able to build. And the kids can take more courses, you can do more things than you can do at Chautauqua. The year my son graduated, Chautauqua graduated 24 people. I'm not joking. You know, so this guy did a super job, and it passed by 10 votes.
Goodness.
So now the rule is the minute both places have passed it, you are now the new school. You don't have a name yet necessarily, you don't have a building yet, but you are together.
Okay.
So there was a vote not too long after that, and Chautauqua Lake became the name of the school, which makes sense since the Chautauqua Lake is right here.
Right.
And that worked out well, and then I think it was 5 years later, the school finally got built and used. It's a beautiful school, absolutely beautiful. There are so many things, but the one thing I said to a board member that I knew well was, I wish there were more students. I found out today that the graduating class at this point is about 70
At
with
Chautauqua
the two
Lake.
schools together.
Mm-hmm.
That's a small number. That's still a very small number.
Right.
Okay? And the school is huge. So what they've now done is they have one whole wing for special ed through BOCES. They have another wing of daycare because there's all kinds of room there.
Mm-hmm.
The population has not grown in this area. It has faltered.
Right.
So that's where that's at.
Now, would you urge further consolidation of the school districts and mergers?
I think where we are now in North Carolina is county school districts, and I see pluses and minuses to that. Frankly, I think the larger you become, the more you can add. The more, you've got a diversification of students. You've got all kinds of students. You've got these that need the basic life skills. You've got others that are taking college courses in 9th and 10th grade, for heaven's sakes. We need to offer the opportunity to do that. When I was principal here, I worked with people at JCC, and I got it through to have a course of calculus taught here in the high school by one of the teachers, and they got college credit for it. And then I went for foreign language. We did it with French. But quite honestly, you're now talking, in my son's calculus class, there were 4 people. So how can you know what I mean, administer that and say it's okay?
Right.
Well, we do that with special ed.
Right.
With special ed, sometimes we only have as few as 4 or 5 students in a class. So I looked at that and said, okay, students need to have the opportunity to grow at their pace. And if you're able to read in 2nd grade, then for heaven's sakes, let's go on with it.
Right. Right.
Okay? So that's pretty much it.
Got it. Got it. Now, do you have any thoughts about current instruction in foreign languages? We're doing enough with that.
With the way the world has become and the way that the Spanish language has become important, for example, if you were to go to a place like Home Depot, everything is in English and Spanish. I learned more words in Home Depot with the tools than I would have ever known.
Right.
You have a large population of Hispanics, okay? And I think somewhere along the line we have to decide where we're going with it. We do not have an official language in the United States. English is not our official language.
Really? I didn't know
Most people
that.
don't understand that, yeah. There is no official language.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we, of course, all learn English just because that's what we've done since the 1700s, et cetera, et cetera. But there is no specific official language. They have tried to make it that way, but it has been turned down several times.
Right, right. And I traveled with our students for a month, it was 3 weeks, after the academic year before I come up to Chautauqua. And an old joke is, what do you call somebody who speaks 2 languages? This is in Europe, bilingual. What do you call them who speaks 3 languages? Trilingual. What do you call someone who speaks 1 language? An American. and indeed,
You know, we don't realize it in America, but in many countries in Europe, people speak 3, 4, and 5 languages. Some of it's been caused by wars. Some of it is caused because they're small countries that are able to speak the other country's languages. They travel within. But quite honestly, in America, we're sort of self-sufficient, if you will.
Right.
A lot of people believe that, why do I have to learn another language?
and those are the people who are not traveled and who don't have broader interests.
Correct.
To read literature and the like in its original language. And that's a difficult situation. Now, let me just ask a couple of more questions. Do you have any strong feelings about the Regent situation as you experience it with those standard exams?
Well, something happened when I was at Casadega Valley Central School as a director of special ed that I was really bothered by. The superintendent, a wonderful guy, came up to me and said, "You're not going to like this, but I got to tell you something you have to do." I said, "What's that?" He said, "You have to give the eligible regents to the 12 students that are seniors that are special ed." I said, "I can't do that. There's no way they could pass that exam." No, they have to take the exam. I said, "Why?" There's a new policy now in New York State where 90% of your senior class has to take the eligible regents. They don't have to pass it, they have to take it. And because of the numbers that we have here in a class, your 12 students hits over 10%. So what I did was I explained it to the special ed teacher, then I explained it to the students, and I told them very honestly, let's take the exam, let's do the best we can, but it will not have anything to do with your getting your certificates. Okay? Then I made a game out of it, to be honest with you. Brought in pizzas and salads and juices. When you finish with the exam, we'll have a party. And that's what we did. Made me feel better that I was making them do this, what I thought was absolutely foolish.
Right, right. And they shouldn't set them up for failure like that.
Right.
Now, Sam, you were here for many years, and then what did you do after you left the school? You didn't quit?
Oh, once I retired.
Right.
Oh, okay. Once I retired, I substituted for a while in foreign languages.
Mm-hmm.
I retired at 55 with the idea that I wanted to do some other things.
Right.
So teaching the languages, which I hadn't done in many years now, was a fantastic idea for me because it got me to reuse the languages because you forget them when you don't use them. So I permanent subbed in various districts in this area. 6 weeks here, a semester there, 4 weeks here. Usually when ladies have maternity leaves or a leave of some reason. And it worked out great. It really did. I enjoyed it immensely.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it with 5th and 6th grade students. I did it with high school students. And in one case in Frewsburg, New York, I taught Spanish 5, and boy, that was very challenging.
And what is Spanish 5?
Spanish 5 is a college course.
Oh, that's goodness.
Through JCC.
Right.
And it was intense. But quite frankly, we did it and got through it. This particular teacher was out of work for a period of time, and I came in.
Was that a major transition? I think it sounds like you learned your Spanish on the job as an elementary school kid.
Yeah, you know, languages is my thing.
Right.
Now, if you ask me about science or technology, I'm in big trouble.
Right.
But foreign languages seems to be one of those things that either you like it or you scream when you have to do anything with it.
Right.
In my case, right from birth. It was automatic.
Two languages.
I was bilingual at a very young age.
Right.
Didn't know it, but
But that's where you were. That's where you were. And now, what's your life like now?
now I'm enjoying retirement 100%. I have two beautiful grandchildren, Sam's children, that I do a lot with.
Mm-hmm.
My wife thinks the world of them and does a lot with them, even more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I also got a position at UNC Chapel Hill ushering football and basketball, and I love them. Especially basketball. As you know, ACC basketball is about the best you're going to get.
Indeed.
And here I am at every single game, free uniform, free food, free parking.
Deal.
Where can you ask? You know, if you stop and think of how much it would have cost to go to all these, but,
Right.
and I love it, absolutely love it.
And you come
It
back.
gives me something to do.
Got it. Got it. And you came back here, and you're doing baseball.
Right. The last 4 World Series, I have done play-by-play. Jamestown hosts the Babe Ruth World Series, different age groups, roughly every 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a year and a half ago, the gentleman called me and said, "Gee, would you come next August?" And I gave him a funny answer. I said, "Oh, if I'm still alive, I'd be more than happy to." And being that I am, I'm doing it. I'm doing 8 games in 6 days, which is,
A lot.
but I love it.
And how old are these folks playing?
These are 16 to 18-year-olds from all over the nation.
Wow.
You've got kids from Massachusetts, Virginia, Alabama, Washington State, California, 2 from New York, and Pennsylvania.
And so that's
it's-
a lot.
And you're talking kids that had to go through local tournaments,
Mm-hmm.
state tournaments, regional tournaments, and now they're here.
How did Jamestown get this?
Jamestown started this in 1980, and they've been doing it ever since. I really don't know how it started, because at that time, I was in Palmyra doing my assistant principalship.
Mm-hmm.
But they started in 1980. There's a gentleman in town that the stadium is named after, Russell Dietrich,
Okay.
who had an awful lot to do with all of this.
Okay.
And it's a lot of work. Now, we also hosted kids. My wife and I hosted 3 or 4 times different kids from different states.
Mm-hmm.
And what I liked about it, you learn a lot about different people, you know. And it's great when you're raising your children to have them come in something different for them to learn. And it worked out well.
Right. Sam, can you believe it? We're out of time.
Oh my goodness.
What else? What else?
That was
do we,
quick.
What else do we need to cover here?
No, I think we're good.
I think we are too. And this has been great fun. And pretty soon I'll be back to see the other Sam DeAngelo.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll finish up with him. So do come back. Thank you so very
I will.
much.
Thank you very much.
By all means.